Welcome in to the 44th episode of the Southern Boys Sports Podcast. My name is Drew Hole. I'm my co-host Ben Clay.
What's going on, guys?
Episode 44. We teased a little bit over on our Twitter, and we are here. We got transfer portal discussions. We've got 2024 recruiting cycle discussions as well. We are joined by On3's very own Josh Newberg. Josh, we really do appreciate you joining us. We got a fun episode ahead of us. And, we really do appreciate you hopping on the show.
Yeah, guys, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we had JD Piquel, obviously one of your co-workers over at On3, and we discussed kind of the spring takeaways, some spring headlines. But obviously you kind of work in the recruiting space a little bit more, and with, spring football and some recruitments and some transfer portal, commitments coming up here and some visits going on, whether it's Keon Coleman or some other guys. We decided to bring on the expert. But Josh, before we get going, we figured out your show is based here in Nashville. The inside scoop over on On3. We're here in Nashville as well, and at least for us, it's been crazy, right? Taylor Swift was in town. The concert was crazy downtown. Was that the same for you? Was it crazy for you too, or was that just us?
Yeah, I live right in Germantown, but luckily I was away for a wedding this weekend in Virginia, but I did get back Sunday morning and experienced it. But I'll also say that I went home. I'm from Tampa, Florida, and I went home 2 weeks ago, and Taylor Swift was doing a 3-night stop in Tampa, and it was her only stop in Florida and one of really the only in the Southeast. So people were coming from all over. So it was very similar. I missed out on it in Nashville, but I experienced it in Tampa.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of leads into our second question just a little bit. With us both being in Nashville, I've got some fun things to do around Nashville. If you're listening and you're in Nashville, maybe this could help you out a little bit. But, I want you to give us, 2 or 3 of your most fun things to do here in Nashville, some of the things that, are bucket list things if you visit Nashville.
Oh man. Well, I think just the food. Well, one, you got to go to Broadway, right? So sometimes my partying days on Broadway are long gone. I was with 24/7 Sports for 12 years and probably came to Nashville like 6 to 8 times during that span, and never for more than 2 nights. And all we would do is get in town, go to Broadway, go to a conference the next morning, go to Broadway again, and get out of town. So, but I would say that is incredible. We walk over from Germantown. It's about a 30-minute walk straight to Broadway, and some of the best people watching you'll ever see. But also, there's a lot of good food in Nashville. It's incredible. Obviously, the great food isn't on Broadway, but once you get your fill on Broadway, there's so many great places to eat. And then I'd say the other thing I like to do in Nashville is get out to some of the state parks. Like Lake Radnor is really cool, and there's a lot of nature out here in Nashville, Tennessee too.
Yeah, for sure. I just went to the my first Nashville SC game, the new soccer team here in Nashville on Saturday, and that was a little bit of a better experience than I expected. Not a big soccer guy, more of a college football guy, but I gave it a chance. And it was pretty fun. So definitely some fun things to do in Nashville. And I think we talked about it with JD on, because obviously, he resides here as well. But, I think I definitely for sure, take things for granted when it comes to Nashville. We had some, we had an Arkansas, insider come on in one of our first episodes. And we've had some other people come on as well. And they've all said Nashville's great, right? We had a guy from New York to help discuss the NCAA tournament. So they all love it. I think I take it for granted sometimes. It can get a little rowdy and boring and all that good stuff. But I do like it. It is a blast. Josh, thanks again for joining us. Yeah, it is. Thanks again for joining us. Make sure to go check out Josh on Twitter at Josh_Newberg or at On3 Sports to check out his work. Our guy JD and all that good stuff. They're doing some great things. Josh, I'll start you off with Coach Prime. If I saw you were on Outkick with Chad Withrow today or yesterday or something like that. We had Chad on the show, and I listened into that. So I know you already talked about Coach Prime a little bit today and Deion Sanders and what he's doing, but I guess my question starts off, in who he's recruiting, what he's recruiting, and, the way he's going about it. And I talked about it on episode 43 when it was me and Ben, and I said, it's going to be a trial for Coach Prime, and it's going to be, is building a quote all-star team the way to do it in the NIL era. Just go out, get the best players that have entered the transfer portals from the teams. We're going to see. My question for you is Deion Sanders going about it the right way? Is he productively recruiting, or is he just snagging the best players he can get at this particular point?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the most impactful transfers that he took were the ones that came over with him from Jackson State, because obviously the quarterback position, it's a quarterback driven league. So you can improve your roster the fastest by getting a quality quarterback on your roster. He did that with Shedeur Sanders. Now you need some talent around him. He flipped the running back from Notre Dame late in the cycle last year. He brings over Travis Hunter. He gets Jimmy Horn from USF. I think the first round of transfers will be more impactful than the second round of transfers. But imagine right now, he's raising the floor of the roster with what he's doing right now, because he purged a lot of guys off of a 1-win team. And I wouldn't say that he's not getting talented players in the portal, but I would say he's getting unproven players in the portal, meaning most of the guys especially more so in the second round of the portal, are guys that maybe were just a hair off that 2 deep, right? They were sitting in third at their position instead of second, or maybe they were battling for that second spot on the roster. And I think some of these guys will be good. You look at like a guy like Bishop Thomas, who come over from Florida State. He's a high risk, high reward type guy. He didn't play high school ball his senior year, and then he redshirted last year at Florida State. So that's 2 years of not playing significant snaps at any level, but he still has 4 years of eligibility remaining. So, you got to look at each one through a different lens, because every guy kind of brings something different. But I think he's getting the best available. He's trying to.
Yeah, Ben, and I think, I guess, I'll go to you, Ben, here on this one, because that is something that we have talked about, on the show previously, and that was getting guys that are unproven at this particular point. A guy like you mentioned in Bishop Thomas, and some other dudes who maybe haven't gotten as many snaps, right? A guy that I like that he's picked up is Quavassier Smoke, coming over from Kentucky. He was kind of stuck behind a guy like Chris Rodriguez Jr., all SEC back. Now he's got the opportunity, him and Dylan Edwards, to kind of be the 1-2 punch at Colorado. So, Ben, I guess we have talked about that as something that is going to be a challenge for Colorado, is seeing those unproven guys.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same for even like Shedeur and Travis, because all those guys from Jackson State, they were not playing on the D1 Pac-12 level. So they still, a lot of their team has a lot to prove. And I think that Deion is trying to set themselves up to be able to prove that.
Yeah. Certainly. The next question I'll get to, Josh, is another, transfer question, because that's one of the biggest things around right now is the transfer portal, with it opening and closing here as of late. Let's jump in the transfer portal, and let's go to Payton Thorne, a guy who transferred from Michigan State. Obviously, Keon Coleman, it kind of came out he didn't want to play with Payton Thorne this season. He enters the portal, then Payton Thorne jumps in the portal, and he's committed to Auburn. He seems like a guy who may be able to fit for Auburn. Maybe that's just what is in a lot of people's minds, because you see Auburn have a weak QB room and you automatically see a transfer quarterback and say, yeah, that's a fit, right? So, I'm cautious of, believing in what Payton Thorne could do schematically for Auburn. Is he a schematic fit for Hugh Freeze in Auburn, or is it just a guy who may be able to, iron sharpen iron, as Robbie Ashford said?
Yeah, I think there'll be a little iron sharpening iron there, but I think Payton Thorne is more of a sure thing. I think that's why you get him. Again, you kind of raise your floor. There's not a lot of risk involved. I mean, they lose TJ Finley, but I think you would trade Thorne for Finley in a heartbeat. So I think that the risk isn't all that much, especially with Hugh Freeze just being in his first year. But we'll know what we get in Thorne after the first 3 games. Auburn opens with UMass, Cal, and Samford before Texas A&M is that 4th game. So we will know after 3 games of seeing Thorne in action just what he brings to that, to that Auburn roster. Is this an Auburn roster that is going to maybe do a little bit better than last year, or is this an Auburn roster led by Payton Thorne that is going to be able to compete with the best in the SEC? We'll know that after 3 games, I think.
Yeah. I mean, in last season for Michigan State, he threw for 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Obviously lost, a key piece of their offense and, what was kind of the key piece to go 10-2 in Mel Tucker's first year, and that was Kenneth Walker. So a lot of people have kind of pinned his, down year on the loss of Kenneth Walker. You get a guy in Jarquez Hunter at Auburn who may be able to take some stress off of him, run the ball pretty well, and you got a couple other guys in that backfield. I guess my question for you is, do you agree with, the rumor of, it is Kenneth Walker, he was the guy, if you can get Payton Thorne to hand the ball off, you can kind of use them exactly how you want them, and he's going to benefit from a really good back.
Yeah, that sounds all good and nice, right, on paper. Right. But at the end of the day, even the SEC has turned into a passing league. And if you're going to get out there and win ball games, because we all know Auburn's going to be in some spots where it's 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 8.
Right.
They're going to need to make some throws. So, yes, I agree with you. I think in theory, if Payton Thorne could just hand it off to the running back and everything else will take care of itself. But in reality, we know that, you're going to have to throw the ball even in the SEC, and maybe even more so now in the SEC, how crazy it's changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we definitely saw flashes of Payton Thorne being able to sling the ball around a little bit. He's competing with a guy in Robbie Ashford who was in the offense last year, 1,600 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks, can run the ball a little bit better, you could argue. But, the big thing with landing Payton Thorne, landing a couple other receivers in the portal has, they've moved Auburn up to number 6 in the portal ranking. So a team that has definitely improved, like you said, elevated their floor and become definitely a better team through this transfer portal window. But Josh, an aforementioned name here, third question of the night. We're going to get to Keon Coleman, one of the biggest, headlines of college football. It's been taking college football Twitter by storm. It's been all over the place. It's really what seems to be a battle between Florida State and Ole Miss. He visited Florida State this past weekend. He's going to visit Ole Miss tomorrow. So obviously we'll see how that goes. But what do you think is the better fit right here for Keon Coleman? Is it a Florida State team up with a guy in Johnny Wilson? That would be absolutely electric. Or go for a more exciting offense. Maybe it could be wide receiver 1 with Jackson Dart, which could make some for some fun times as well. So what's the better fit in your mind?
Yeah, and at Florida State, Micah Pittman transfers to Utah unexpectedly. He was kind of wide receiver 2 for FSU last year, along with Ontario Wilson, who graduated. So you're looking at a lot of balls there at FSU, even though you have a guy like Johnny Wilson. But Johnny Wilson is kind of like the Mike Evans type with Tom Brady. He while I don't want to say he's not a go-to guy, because you go to him when you need him most.
Right.
But there's still a lot of ball. He's not a volume catcher. Johnny Wilson can catch 5 footballs for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game. He can go crazy off of minimum touches, but he does demand a lot from the defense over the top. So Keon Coleman could view FSU as a spot where he has a lot of opportunity. Then you look at Ole Miss, and we know what Lane Kiffin likes to do with the football. He likes to get it vertical. He likes to put up big numbers, and he likes to score points. Keon Coleman would be a welcome addition to Ole Miss, who didn't recruit particularly well this year. Not, they didn't make the huge splash at the skill positions that you think they would in the portal. But Keon Coleman would do that, right? Keon Coleman would come to Ole Miss and be probably one of the best wide receivers on that roster, if not wide receiver 1 from the moment he steps on campus. And he's going to put up big numbers. So I think it comes down to NIL and relationships. But I believe both coaches, I know Florida State was heavily involved in Keon Coleman out of high school, and I believe Ole Miss was as well. Keon Coleman's from Louisiana, so Tallahassee or Oxford, they're both kind of close to home in the same region. It'll be interesting to see now what happens after the Ole Miss visit. If FSU goes head-to-head against Ole Miss, the way FSU's been cooking in the portal, I don't know. It's a toss-up from there. But who's to say that he doesn't take more visits after this? So I think a lot of people are looking at this as either a Kiffin-Norvell battle, but I'm not so sure that Keon Coleman is just ready to hang it up after 2 visits. He might take more trips.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, he's a guy who could work really well with Johnny Wilson. He's 6'4", 215. That would be a monstrous duo. But like you said, I mean, at Ole Miss with the Rebels, he's a guy who could be the wide receiver 1. In the spring game, it kind of looked like an open wide receiving core. Jordan Watkins kind of showed out a little bit, but Kenshawn Judkins, Jackson Dart, Keon Coleman could kind of be the poster boys of that offense, and that would be something really fun. Keon, almost 800 yards in 2023, 2023, 7 touchdowns, and he's taken a step up offensively for sure, right? Michigan State ranked 172nd in points per game in 2022, and you get to a team at Ole Miss who's 54th, and FSU who's top 30 at 29. So he wants to go to a fun offensive team. I think you get the opportunity to do that. Mike Norvell, great offensive head coach. Jordan Travis, great QB, and same with Ole Miss and Jackson Dart, Lane Kiffin, respectively. So we will see. I do like to take there. I'll kick it to you, Ben.
Right. So moving on to this 2024 recruiting cycle, starting more focused on the group of 5 right now. We've got some higher teams like Toledo, North Texas, and USF. Is there a specific team, not even like number ranking wise, but a certain class that you think has a very high ceiling or could turn out as a really good class?
I think Tulane. I like to look at the schools that kind of come from hotbeds of recruiting as well. So programs like a Tulane, like a USF, like a Middle Tennessee or a Memphis. They got to make sure those programs, there's enough talent in those areas that falls between the cracks that they capitalize on it. And I also think that really the group of 5, I don't think, yes, they recruit, but I also think they more so evaluate, because recruiting is what happens at the highest level. When everybody knows that everybody's recruiting or everybody's offered this guy, it comes down to who can recruit him better. If you're at Memphis and you're at Middle Tennessee and you're at USF, it comes down to really evaluating what remains. You have all these guys that were passed over from the Power Fives for various reasons. It could be grades, it could be skill, it could be just a number of reasons. And It's their job to evaluate and project, because a lot of these guys might be undersized. They come with issues. There's a reason why they were passed over by the bigger programs, and now it's a battle of evaluations more than recruiting.
Yeah. Ben, like you mentioned, Toledo's at 57, North Texas at 61, USF at 62. I'm a Tennessee fan, so I'm rooting for USF and Alex Golish, and that what they got going there. We'll get to a guy who transferred from North Texas. He was a pretty good recruit out of high school, but like you said, we haven't seen a highly ranked group of 5 team, if you're including Cincinnati and UCF, into the Big 12. You saw 2022 UTSA and 2021 Memphis at 52, and that was the highest we've seen since I want to say 2015, 2016. So it's definitely not like you said, not a huge recruiting level. But I guess we'll see. I like the point. Tulane coming from a recruiting hotbed and things of that nature. 2024 number 1 player in the class, Ben.
Right. So moving on to a lot different, Dylan Raiola, the number 1 player in the class. So y'all have projected him. He's like 69% to Georgia, a bit to USC. Where do you think he will end up, and do you have high hopes for him?
I think he ends up at Georgia. I do not have do I have a pick in? I don't know. I don't think I put a pick in for Raiola. I just found out that I have the ability to put picks in like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I've only put in like 4 or 5. So I don't know if I have one on Raiola, but if I didn't, then I would put it in on Georgia. And we covered this on the Inside Scoop about 10 days ago that Raiola could be making, I called it a surprise decision. Now, the surprise isn't if he picks Georgia. To me, the surprise is if he does it before the summer, because he has 1 official visit set for early June, and that's to Georgia. And he said he was going to plan and get more going, which to me would mean he wasn't planning on making an early decision. But he hasn't added any official visits in like the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I think this one could be Georgia, and it could be soon. If it makes it to the summer, I think that helps USC, and I think it helps Nebraska because it gives them more time to get Dylan back on campus. Because right now, all signs point that it's trending to UGA. But if they could get him to wait and get it to summer and get him back on campus for an official visit, that's the best chance for USC or Nebraska.
Yeah, Ben, like you mentioned, on through RPMs, got 69% UGA, 18% USC. He's considering, 2 Pac-12 teams, USC, Oregon, and then Nebraska and Georgia. Obviously, Georgia, you're coming off 2 back-to-back national championships. You just sent a guy to the league in Stetson Bennett. And, at Nebraska, I know he's got some family there. You kind of have the opportunity to start as a freshman and kind of blaze your own trail in the Big Ten. But I guess if we go outside of where he is going to go, so not, maybe not a prediction, but if you had to give the best fit for Dylan Raiola, where you think he would fit the best, and if that is Georgia, so be it. But, just the overall schematic fit for Dylan Raiola and where you think he would thrive at the collegiate level.
I think you can't go wrong with Georgia right now because it's not the Georgia. It's not our parents' Georgia. Like, this team has guys all up and down the roster, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, you name it. Some of the best players in America are on that roster. Of course, you couldn't go wrong with USC either. They have a ton of options, and the competition is a little bit, you're not going through the SEC slate. And you also got Lincoln Riley on the sidelines, who just breeds Heisman Trophy winners. And then you got Nebraska, who I think is a little bit, it's the storyline at Nebraska, because you're not inheriting the roster that you're inheriting at USC or at Georgia, but you are being part of the storyline. You're Matt Rule's guy. You're the first quarterback under his tenure. The program's been down for so long. You have family coaching at Nebraska. You're a legacy prospect. Like, to me, if this goes any way but Nebraska, it's going to be such a heartbreaker for the Nebraska fan base. Whereas if he didn't pick Georgia or he didn't pick USC, I mean, yeah, their fans would be a little disappointed, but not even close to the heartbreak, because also their second-tier options. I mean, hell, UGA already has Ryan Puglisi committed. On3 has him ranked as the number 6 quarterback in America, so only 6 spots behind Raiola. USC signed 5-star Malachi Nelson last year. In Nebraska, if they miss on Dylan Raiola, it's not like they're going from the first-rated quarterback to the 6th. They're probably dropping way down to their next option in 2024 or 2023. So, we'll see what happens, but right now I think Georgia fans are in line to get a massive commitment. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah. I mean, he's 6'3", 230. He's got the build. He's got the body. It's just about, where he's going to end up. So definitely something to watch. He's from the West Coast, so maybe that plays just a little bit into it. We will see. Let's go to one of my favorite players in the 2024 class, if not my favorite player. And it's going to sound weird coming from a Tennessee fan, but it is a Florida commit. Let's stay in the quarterback room. Let's go with DJ Lagway, a guy out of Willis, Texas, a guy who could potentially immediately help the quarterback situation in Gainesville. You're talking about a weaker room with Graham Mertz, in the Ohio State transfer. And, you got a couple guys making noise. You might have had landed Jaden Rashada over this past summer in recruiting cycle. He ends up going to Arizona State. So now you've got a guy who's a top 25 player in the class. He's got a Hendon Hooker comparison from multiple other resources and sites. He's got the ability to get out and run. He's a 3-sport athlete in high school. He's just an overall freak athlete. He can sling the ball. I really love him. He's 6'2", 230, well-built. And I, as weird as it may sound, he could rip up Tennessee defenses for the next 3 or 4 years. But I do like him. I like what he's got, and I want to get your perspective on Mr. Lagway.
Oh, just a huge, incredible piece for Florida to get to their commitment list early. Premier quarterback allows you to build a commitment class around him. Yep. DJ Lagway, out of the state of Texas, as you said, has made several visits to UF. And I think if you just follow the visits there, it was really UF, USC in the end. I know Clemson battled, but kind of got knocked off early by the Gators. I think those were kind of the 2 teams in it at the end there for DJ Lagway, and just the timing of his decision was great for UF. He was able to be at all the junior days. He was at the spring game. He'll be there for some of the big summer events. And I was talking about DJ Lagway on the Inside Scoop recently, and I said, I think he's the best recruiter in the country. Just the job that he does helping the UF staff on the recruiting trail is enormous.
Yeah, like I said, I really do like him. I think he's got, like I said, I think he's got some big potential. He's definitely one of the bigger names. One of the things that you said in there earlier, and is kind of being slept on, I think, a lot when it comes to recruiting, is the ability for one big commitment to kind of give a domino effect to everyone else in the class. I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to recruiting. You want to talk about a guy in at Michigan, you get a 5-star quarterback and you get multiple other offensive line commits. They want to go in there. They want to protect their guy. You get Taylor Lewan tweeting about how they're national championship contenders. How big of a part is that one big commit for a program? Is that kind of a structure that you could go after if you're a coach, get that one big guy, and then maybe these guys will follow because they want to start building something special at your college?
There's a difference between getting that one big guy and getting an elite top tier quarterback, because you can get a big guy. But like I said, when we talked about the Shedeur Sanders transfer, it's a quarterback driven league. The league is so quarterback driven that even recruits know that the quarterback is the most important part of the class. Like a class without a quarterback even sometimes can affect the defensive side of the ball. Like it's crazy how meaningful that elite quarterback is, especially if you can get him to commit early as DJ Lagway did. Now, most, there are some quarterbacks that are going to take this thing maybe into their senior year, but I think 90% of top tier quarterbacks will be committed by the end of August.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben, a guy, you're obviously an Oklahoma fan over there, Ben. Guy you obviously recently landed, that's Jackson Arnold. We saw the way he could throw the ball in the spring game a little bit for Oklahoma. As we continue the topic about, that one big elite quarterback helping land some other players, you see the effects over at Oklahoma. Has Jackson Arnold brought some bigger names to Norman, or anything along those lines?
Definitely. I mean, we can just talk about his high school teammate, Peyton Bowen. That was a massive get for us. And, that's something that we definitely could have used. And, it really just does show, like, the high-tier quarterback that you can get, a lot of people want to play with him, and it can really help out a team's recruiting.
Yeah. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Tennessee got Nico in this past cycle. They were able to land a couple other guys on the defensive side of the ball. So, definitely something there. Let's go to two sleeper teams that I picked out in next year's 2024 class, the team rankings. Obviously, it's early. It's May 8th of 2023. We won't see the effects of these recruiting rankings till next year, maybe a couple years in advance as these guys develop. But early rankings, you see two teams in there that really haven't been, as high as they are in a long time. As far as I saw since 2017, 2018, that's Iowa, the Hawkeyes, and that's Louisville. The Cardinals and their new head coach, Jeff Brom. Louisville's at 19. Iowa's at 21. Are they legit? Like, are they going to stay up there? How does this, these teams landing big recruits help their future?
I think they'll have a tough time staying inside the top 20, but I think they could hover around that 25 spot. Yeah. If you look at Louisville, I mean, they went out and they got TJ Capers early on. Now, Louisville also started out red hot last year. They got some guys committed early and weren't able to hold on. But TJ Capers, the number 4 linebacker in America, he's out of Columbus High School down there in Miami, Florida, and he's committed early. Now, I'm not too optimistic that they're going to hold on to him, but you did say something important. It's Jeff Brom's first year, and a lot of times there's excitement, there's optimism, there's opportunity around a new head coach. So I do think that they'll recruit well. And then you look at Iowa, and I think that they've kind of gotten it together with their NIL. They've gotten a little bit more organized, and you might see their recruiting efforts kind of stabilize. And I do think that Iowa, with what they got going NIL-wise off field, I think they could compete for a top 25 class.
Yeah. I mean, you got 3 4-stars committed to Louisville at this point, 2 from Iowa. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Obviously, I mean, like I said, to kind of kick it off, the movement around these rankings and all that stuff is always, pretty big. You've seen Oklahoma trend upwards just a little bit as of late. We'll see Alabama inevitably make a jump as they're kind of lower on a couple other, recruiting sites rankings as of right now. But, again, definitely no doubt that I think they make the jump up. Ben?
So moving back on the transfers, we're going to talk about someone who's kind of rumored to go to Auburn. Payton Thorne kind of jumped it. Casey Thompson. Where do you think his potential landing spots are right now? And if you had a favorite to pick where he's going to end up, where would it be?
Well, he left the Nebraska job because he didn't feel like he could overtake Jeff Sims as starter. So I think with Casey Thompson, he's eyeing a place that he can go for his final season and put up some numbers and just get back to playing ball. And I think he's going to end up at FAU. There's a report from 24/7 saying that he was going to visit there tomorrow, I believe. So if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. He's familiar. He knows Tom Herman, and maybe they can reunite for one last run together. Well, it won't be Tom Herman's last run, but it'll be Casey Thompson's last run. And it seems like that would be a great fit. Familiarity. FAU gets an upgraded quarterback. You're dropping down a league where you know you can play and you can go have some fun and try to put up numbers.
Yeah. Obviously FAU makes the move to a competitive AAC this season. They're going to be competing against the Tulanes. So he'll definitely get the opportunity to go in and compete. Like you said, put up some numbers, maybe fall, in those mid to late rounds of the draft. And more importantly, reunite with Tom Herman. I think that's what a lot of people are keeping their eye on. Started his college career at Texas, played with Herman, transferred over to Nebraska. In 2022, 2023 with Scott Frost and that, dumpster fire of the 2022 Nebraska Cornhuskers, a little over 2,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 64.5 QBR, and nothing really that jumped off the page, right? I mean, I don't know how serious those rumors that he may commit to Auburn, and all that good stuff, how serious those really were. Obviously Payton Thorne kind of beat him to it. I know he took a visit over there, but I like Casey Thompson. He definitely showed some weak spots, and if you're in a spot where Jeff Sims is really just forcing you to enter the transfer portal, I can see a world where you do have to drop down to that Group 5 level. But I'm excited for Jeff Sims and Nebraska. Stay in the portal. The majority of these discussions have stayed in the portal, and we got some big names to get to. That doesn't change right here. We've got Varkey's Gums. He's committed, he's decommitted, and committed again in the span of about 12 to 13, maybe 14 days. Sam Pittman gets a good one. It is a huge commitment for Arkansas. How does he help Arkansas as a blocking unit, and how does he go out there and help KJ Jefferson as a receiving threat here in 2023?
Well, with transfers, there's nothing binding that when you say that you're committed to a school as a transfer, until you enroll, until you literally physically step on campus and enroll, that's the only thing that locks you into your commitment. So to say that Gums is committed, we need to say for now, because it might not be over yet. But he did say something really funny here. Well, I found it funny. He said, quote, I wanted to weigh my options and make sure I was making the right decision and wasn't moving too fast in the process. Come to find out, I still like Arkansas.
He went through all that and then found home again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the check, the number on the check got a little bigger. I don't know what happened, but hey, I still like Arkansas. Go figure. I just think that's so funny, and it's so indicative of kind of the transfer portal era that we're in, where I still like Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy who he was a all CUSA first team, tight end.
But to answer your question, he's a beast. He's going to help out in a major way. He's going to be a blocker. He's going to be a pass catcher. I mean, he's a physical freak. Like he's going to be a big help to Arkansas, and I can see why they stayed on him despite his decommitment, and whatever he needed to get that deal done, they made sure it happened.
Yeah. I mean, to continue what he said, I mean, he is a beast. He's all CUSA first team tight end as a true freshman, or a freshman at least. 6'3", 230 pounds. He was a 3-star out of high school, committed to North Texas, and obviously figured out he was good enough to play at the SEC level. So, I mean, almost 500 yards receiving, five touchdowns. And Arkansas now with that commitment, fourth best transfer class. Pittman could be loading up. Do you see anything, that kind of points to Arkansas loading up for 2023? How do you like this year's transfer class in Fayetteville?
No, they're doing great. Sam Pittman was kind of on life support at the end of, or at the beginning, or at times of last season, I should say, but they've done well, and they're recruiting really good in the 2024 class. They picked up a couple in-state Arkansas guys. It got the recruiting class going. They picked up 3 or 4 commitments, and they have a top 20 class right now. So Sam Pittman kind of stabilizing things right here with Arkansas, maybe heading into the season on a high note with the transfers that they've brought in. I like what Arkansas has done. Shout out to Sam Pittman. That's a tough battle. You're going up against everybody that you got to go up against if you're Arkansas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he definitely caught a lot of people by storm.
All right. Final question we have for you here. A little bit biased talk, but me and Drew's favorite teams, Tennessee and Oklahoma. What are your opinions on these teams? And if you give like a takeaway about each team, what are you expecting from their recruiting classes this year?
Well, I think Oklahoma, like we said, you start getting it going with your quarterback. And when they got what's their quarterback say? Michael Hawkins.
Michael Hawkins, yeah.
Michael Hawkins kind of got Oklahoma rolling on the recruiting trail. I think that once they got him, you start seeing a couple wide receivers trending their way. And Oklahoma, we're going to judge their class on what they do at the defensive line. If they can land Williams Winnerian, if they can land a David Stone, if they can land a Jonah Jay, if they can get in on a Nigel Smith, I mean, their defensive line class has a chance to be insane. Right now, the trending for Bryant Wesco, a 5-star wide receiver. Oklahoma is just kind of stewing right now. There may be the class has been a disappointment to some OU fans, but other OU fans kind of see the momentum picking up. And if you know what's still left out on the board, I think there's a lot of potential right here for Oklahoma to finish really strong. But like I said, that D-line class, everything that they did last year with grabbing the quarterback and Peyton Bowen and everything, now it's time to load up on that defensive line, especially with Brent Venables. You get a great defensive line, all of a sudden your secondary looks better, your linebackers are playing more free. So I think this class for Oklahoma has a chance to be special on the defensive line. And then at Tennessee, they're starting to fire up too. They got a great shot. I mean, the two teams we're looking at right now are both battling for Williams Winnerian. I think Williams Winnerian named a top 10, but I think it really comes down to Oklahoma and Tennessee. You got Mike Matthews is involved heavily with Tennessee. Ryan Wingo is involved heavily with Tennessee. And we're going to see a lot of these official visits go down, and we're going to see some more separation. And I like Tennessee's chances when they get guys on campus. That kind of seems to be the formula. They do a great job hosting recruits. They do a great job putting on big events. And I think Tennessee is going to continue this into the summer, and we're going to see some crossover between Oklahoma and Tennessee, guys. So get ready for some big time rivalry recruiting battles on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to buckle up. I mean, it's going to be great content over the summer because, there's no football going on. So, talk recruiting, and that'll be some fun rivalry. But, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma, as much as, credit I don't give them, they've got some great guys this class, talking about guys like Zion Kearney, who's a top 100 player across the board, talking about a guy you mentioned, Jaden Hardy and Jeremiah Newcomb. They're loading up on defense. I guess they believe in what Brent Venables has got. He's a defensive-minded head coach, produced some guys at Clemson on the defensive line and stuff like that. So, who wouldn't want to go play for somebody who's produced NFL talent, I guess you could say. But, Josh, that'll just about do it for what we had for you here in episode 44. We do really appreciate you joining us. Make sure to go check him out at Josh_Newberg on Twitter, at On3Sports, and the Inside Scoop to go check out his work. And, make sure to go check that out over on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you again, Josh, for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me on, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
See ya.
Ben, what an episode 44 there. We're continuing to talk recruiting. We're continuing to talk transfer portal. Very productive episode there with Josh Newberg of On3. And make sure to go check him out at all of those ats and all that stuff. I'll make sure to go link them down below. Ben, we didn't get to it originally. We gotta get a little bit of small talk in here. We're keeping it under 45 minutes, 48 minutes, and that's what's most important. So, how's this past week been for you, Ben?
Man, I don't remember. Was it last week when baseball ended?
I cannot remember. I honestly, they all run together nowadays.
Last week or the week after that.
Yeah, they all run together. Yeah.
It's 2 weeks left of school. Coming down to it, man. It's time to actually log in and do some schoolwork, and you kind of have to prepare yourself for that one mentally. But getting ready for summer. It's something that, I'm looking forward to a lot. And for me this week, it's just been getting stuff done. And, a little thing that, what's been better this year, Drew?
What's that?
The NBA. I feel like the NBA playoffs this year have been better than the past. I feel like the past was like
I've maybe watched 3 minutes of the NBA playoffs this year. So
I've watched Lakers Warriors. I've turned on Lakers Warriors.
I guess, yeah. I
watched a bit of it.
That. Yeah, I understand that for sure. I've been hitting the links a little bit, Ben.
I've heard.
I shot 48 on 9. If you're listening,
what was par?
It's pretty bad. 35.
Okay, I'm telling you, I'm shooting like 55 then.
So it's not great, right? But step in the right direction. I've been heading out to the driving range, hitting some balls, and doing all that stuff. So it's a grind. We got to continue to get better. But Ben, maybe we go play this weekend, and you can bust in the backside of the driver, like that classic time where you mashed in the front of the driver somehow. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
You really you don't recall?
I did that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
I really don't know how.
Yeah, how did you do that?
I must have missed that back. Like I don't really know what I did. For some reason, I cannot hit the driver for anything.
Yeah,
I just tee off with the pitching wedge at this point. So
I was supposed to go play with your brother, and then on the way, my car had some problems because what's new with my car? So I didn't go play with your brother. I went out and played with 2 randoms that graduated from Elon. So we had some Elon Vanderbilt 2022 Week 1 discussions mixed in there. There's a little college football action for you. But, Ben, that will do it for episode 44. You got any objections before we close it out? Kept it short. So if you're on the way to work, listening while you're doing your chores, washing the dishes, mowing the lawn, whatever you're doing, we do appreciate you listening to all 43 minutes here. Make sure to go check out Josh Newberg and all he's doing at On3. The Inside Scoop is the show he runs over there at Josh_Newberg and at On3 Sports for recruiting news, transfer portal news, and On3 in general. Make sure to go check out JD Pickell as well. Really cool dude. Ben, any objections?
I really think we're going to get Nawari. I'm going to be honest with you.
He's going to the Vols.
I think we're going to get David Stone, and then Nawari just trickles in with them.
We will see. We'll keep up with it this summer for sure. We got to get some content flowing onto the show, and I'm sure that'll be a part of it. But episode 45, same time, same place next week. Give us a 5-star review here at Southern Boys Sports. Like and subscribe. Follow our Twitter at so_boy_sports and our Instagram at Southern_boy_sports pod. Some interactive polls. You're alerted when the new episode drops over on our Instagram, so make sure to go follow over there. Check out On3, the Inside Scoop with Josh Newberg. And last but not least, super cool hat right here from University Traditions and everything that they do. Super cool. Pretty new drops over there as well. So make sure code SBS15 at checkout at universitytraditions.biz. That will be it for the 44th episode of the Southern Boys Sports Podcast. Same time, same place next week. See you, boys.